The greatest battles of your life will never be fought on any battlefield. They won't involve weapons, armies, or physical confrontation. Instead, they'll happen in the quiet moments when you choose courage over comfort, discipline over indulgence, wisdom over reactivity, and virtue over expedience. These are the battles that determine not whether you survive, but who you become in the process of living. When we think of warriors, we typically imagine soldiers in combat, martial artists in competition, or heroes facing external enemies. But the Stoic philosophers understood a deeper truth. The most important warfare is internal, and the strongest warriors are those who have learned to conquer themselves rather than others. Epictetus, who transformed from an enslaved person into one of history's most respected teachers, embodied this principle completely. What does it mean to be a warrior in modern life? How do you cultivate the mindset of strength, courage, and strategic thinking without literal battles to fight? The answer lies in recognizing that every day presents countless opportunities for what we might call philosophical warfare. Moments where you can choose to act from your highest principles rather than your immediate impulses, where you can demonstrate courage in the face of uncertainty, and where you can practice the kind of mental discipline that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary human beings. The warrior's path, as understood by the Stoics, isn't about aggression or domination. It's about developing the internal qualities that allow you to remain steady under pressure, make difficult decisions with wisdom, and maintain your integrity regardless of external circumstances. To understand what it means to be a modern-day warrior, we must first examine what the Stoics meant by internal warfare. This isn't metaphorical self-improvement or motivational thinking. It's a rigorous philosophical framework for engaging with the fundamental conflicts that define human existence. Every moment, we face what we might call micro-battles between different aspects of our nature. There's the part of you that wants to stay in bed versus the part that knows you have important work to do. The part that wants to react angrily to criticism versus the part that recognizes an opportunity for growth. The part that seeks immediate pleasure versus the part that understands the value of long-term goals. These aren't trivial choices, they're the building blocks of character. Marcus Aurelius, arguably the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote extensively about this internal warfare in his private journals. Despite commanding vast armies and governing an empire, he understood that his greatest battles were fought against his own tendencies toward anger, despair, and self-indulgence. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This philosophical approach to personal development operates on several levels simultaneously. At the most basic level, it involves what we might call impulse governance, learning to pause between stimulus and response, to choose your reactions rather than being controlled by them. When someone cuts you off in traffic, the warrior's response isn't road rage or passive resentment, but conscious choice about how to engage with this minor irritation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a neuroscientist who studies decision-making under stress, has found that people who develop what she calls strategic pause capacity, the ability to delay immediate reactions, show greater emotional regulation and better long-term outcomes across multiple life domains. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic understanding of internal warfare as fundamentally about developing agency over your own responses. At a deeper level, this philosophy involves questioning the assumptions and beliefs that drive our behavior. Most people go through life unconsciously following scripts inherited from family, culture, or random experiences. The warrior's path requires examining these scripts and choosing which ones actually serve your development as a human being. Consider how this might apply to career decisions. The conventional approach involves following external markers of success, salary, status, social approval, without deeply examining whether these align with your authentic values. The warrior's approach involves first clarifying what you actually want from your professional life, then making strategic decisions that move you toward those goals regardless of social pressure or immediate comfort. This internal warfare also extends to how we relate to suffering and difficulty. Most people see challenges as obstacles to overcome or problems to solve as quickly as possible. The Stoic warrior recognizes challenges as opportunities for developing strength, wisdom, and character. This doesn't mean seeking out unnecessary hardship, but rather approaching inevitable difficulties with a fundamentally different mindset. Warriors think strategically rather than reactively. They consider long-term consequences, anticipate potential challenges, and make decisions based on principles rather than emotions. How does this strategic mindset translate into the ordinary circumstances of modern life? The first element involves what we might call situational awareness, the capacity to observe your environment, your internal state, and the dynamics between them without getting caught up in immediate reactions. Just as a military strategist surveys the battlefield before engaging, the philosophical warrior develops the habit of assessing situations before responding. This might manifest in something as simple as noticing your energy levels throughout the day and scheduling important conversations when you're most likely to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Or recognizing that certain environments or people trigger specific emotional patterns and preparing yourself accordingly. James Chen, a project manager at a tech startup, discovered the power of strategic thinking when he began treating difficult team meetings like tactical operations. Instead of going in unprepared and reacting to whatever happened, he started anticipating likely conflicts, preparing responses that aligned with his values, and setting clear objectives for what he wanted to accomplish. This shift from reactive to strategic engagement transformed both his effectiveness and his stress levels. The second element involves what the Stoics called preferred indifference, recognizing that while some things are genuinely important, your character, your choices, your responses, many things we worry about are relatively unimportant in the larger context of living well. Health, wealth, reputation, and even relationships, while preferable to their opposites, are not the ultimate determinants of a well-lived life. This perspective allows the modern warrior to invest energy wisely. Instead of getting emotionally hijacked by every setback or social slight, you can maintain focus on what actually matters for your long-term development and contribution to the world. When Sarah's startup loses a major investor, she can feel the disappointment without letting it derail her strategic focus on building a sustainable business that creates genuine value. The third element involves developing what we might call adaptive resilience, the ability to adjust your tactics while maintaining your overall strategic direction. Life rarely unfolds according to our plans, and the warrior's mindset includes flexibility about methods while remaining committed to principles. This might mean changing career paths when new information emerges about your industry, adjusting your approach to a relationship when you understand the other person's needs better, or modifying your daily routines when circumstances change. The key insight is that flexibility about tactics strengthens rather than weakens your strategic position, as long as your fundamental values remain clear. Modern research on what psychologists call cognitive flexibility supports this ancient insight. People who can adjust their strategies while maintaining their core goals show greater resilience during life transitions and achieve better outcomes over time. In traditional warfare, weapons determine a warrior's effectiveness. In the internal warfare of character development, virtues serve as your primary weapons. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, not as abstract ideals, but as practical tools for navigating life's challenges with integrity and effectiveness. Wisdom, in the Stoic sense, isn't academic knowledge or intellectual cleverness. It's the practical ability to see situations clearly, understand what you can and cannot control, and make decisions that align with your long-term flourishing. The warrior's cultivation of wisdom involves developing what we might call philosophical perspective, the capacity to step back from immediate circumstances and see them within the larger context of your values and goals. When Michael discovers that his colleague has been taking credit for his ideas, the wisdom-based response isn't immediate confrontation or resentful silence. Instead, he might examine what this situation reveals about workplace dynamics, consider various approaches for addressing it constructively, and choose a response that protects his interests while maintaining his integrity. Justice, for the Stoic warrior, extends beyond legal compliance to encompass a deep commitment to treating others fairly and contributing positively to your community. This virtue becomes particularly important in competitive environments where short-term advantage might come at the expense of others' well-being. In business contexts, this might mean refusing to participate in office gossip that damages colleagues' reputations, choosing suppliers based on ethical practices rather than just cost considerations, or taking responsibility for mistakes rather than deflecting blame. These choices require courage because they often conflict with immediate self-interest, but they build the kind of character that creates sustainable success and meaningful relationships. Courage, perhaps the most obviously warrior-like virtue, manifests in numerous ways beyond physical bravery. Intellectual courage involves challenging popular opinions when you believe they're wrong, even when this creates social discomfort. Emotional courage means feeling difficult emotions fully rather than numbing them through distraction or escapism. Moral courage requires standing up for your principles even when doing so involves personal cost. Lisa, a marketing director, demonstrates emotional courage when she chooses to have a difficult conversation with her team about performance issues rather than avoiding the discomfort and hoping problems resolve themselves. This courage to engage with difficulty directly, rather than hoping it disappears, is fundamental to the warrior's approach to life. Temperance involves what we might call intelligent self-regulation, not rigid self-denial, but thoughtful moderation based on understanding what truly serves your well-being. The warrior's relationship with pleasure, comfort, and immediate gratification is strategic rather than compulsive. This might manifest as choosing to exercise regularly not from vanity but from recognition that physical health supports mental clarity, limiting social media consumption because you understand its impact on your attention span, or saving money not from fear but from appreciation for the freedom that financial stability provides. The crucial insight is that these virtues aren't restrictions on your freedom. They're tools that create greater freedom by aligning your actions with your deeper values rather than being controlled by impulses, social pressure, or unconscious patterns. The warrior's path requires transforming abstract principles into concrete daily practices. Discipline, in the Stoic understanding, isn't harsh self-punishment or rigid adherence to arbitrary rules. It's the intelligent design of habits and systems that support your development as a human being. This disciplined approach begins with what we might call intentional mornings, starting each day with conscious choice rather than reactive patterns. Instead of immediately checking your phone or rushing into the day's demands, the modern warrior might spend a few minutes considering their priorities, reflecting on their values, and setting intentions for how they want to show up in the world. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this practice in his personal writings, regularly beginning his reflections by reminding himself of his philosophical commitments and preparing mentally for the challenges he might face. This wasn't pessimistic thinking. It was strategic preparation that allowed him to respond to difficulties from wisdom rather than reactivity. The discipline of daily reflection serves multiple functions for character development. First, it creates regular opportunities for what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about your thinking. By observing your mental patterns, emotional reactions, and decision-making processes, you develop greater agency over them. Robert, a financial advisor, discovered that his tendency to overcommit to social obligations stemmed from an unconscious belief that saying no would damage his relationships. Through daily reflection on his choices and their underlying motivations, he gradually developed the courage to set boundaries that preserved his energy for truly important commitments. Second, disciplined reflection allows you to learn from your experiences rather than simply accumulating them. Each challenge becomes a source of wisdom rather than just something to endure or forget. When you handle a difficult situation well, you can identify what principles or practices contributed to that success. When you respond poorly, you can examine what led to that outcome and how you might approach similar situations differently in the future. Third, regular philosophical practice builds what we might call character momentum, the psychological strength that comes from consistently choosing your values over your impulses. Like physical fitness, this strength develops gradually through repeated practice rather than dramatic one-time efforts. The discipline also extends to how you consume information and entertainment. The warrior's approach involves curating inputs that support your development rather than passively consuming whatever captures your attention. This might mean choosing books, podcasts, and conversations that challenge your thinking rather than simply confirming your existing beliefs. Research on neuroplasticity shows that our brains literally reshape themselves based on repeated patterns of thought and behavior. The disciplined practice of philosophical reflection and value-based decision-making doesn't just improve your life outcomes. It changes the fundamental structure of your consciousness in ways that make wisdom and virtue feel more natural over time. What are the specific battles that deserve your warrior's attention in contemporary life? The Stoic framework provides clear guidance for identifying which conflicts merit your energy and which ones distract from your essential development. The first category involves battles against internal obstacles to your flourishing. These include procrastination, self-doubt, emotional reactivity, and the tendency to seek external validation rather than living according to your authentic values. Unlike external conflicts where victory might be impossible or temporary, these internal battles offer the possibility of genuine, lasting transformation. The battle against procrastination, for instance, isn't ultimately about time management or productivity systems. It's about developing the courage to engage with important work despite uncertainty about outcomes, discomfort with imperfection, or fear of failure. When David consistently chooses to work on his novel despite feeling inadequate as a writer, he's fighting a battle that strengthens his character regardless of whether the book ever gets published. The second category involves standing up for principles in social and professional contexts where doing so requires courage. This might mean refusing to participate in workplace behavior that contradicts your values, speaking honestly in situations where others expect polite dishonesty, or maintaining your standards even when others pressure you to compromise. These battles are particularly challenging because they often involve immediate social costs for long-term character benefits. When Jennifer chooses not to laugh at jokes that demean others, she risks being seen as uptight or judgmental. But she's fighting a battle for the kind of person she wants to be, regardless of others' opinions. The third category involves what we might call constructive engagement with systemic problems that affect your community or profession. The warrior's approach isn't reactive activism or angry protest, but thoughtful action based on clear principles and realistic assessment of what you can actually influence. This might manifest as mentoring younger colleagues who face challenges you've overcome, volunteering for causes that align with your values, or making career choices that contribute to positive change in your industry. The key insight is that these battles serve both your character development and the common good. The wisdom lies in distinguishing between battles worth fighting and conflicts that drain your energy without serving any constructive purpose. Arguments on social media, office politics that don't involve genuine principles, and attempts to control other people's behavior rarely qualify as worthy battles for the philosophical warrior. Epictetus provided clear guidance on this distinction. Focus your energy on what you can control, your thoughts, choices, and responses, while accepting what you cannot control. This doesn't mean becoming passive, but rather investing your limited energy where it can actually make a difference. The warrior's mindset also recognizes that some of the most important battles are fought through daily choices that seem insignificant but accumulate into character over time. Choosing truth over convenience in small conversations, maintaining your exercise routine when you don't feel like it, treating service workers with respect when you're stressed. These micro-battles shape who you become more than dramatic gestures or major life decisions. The ultimate victory in the warrior's path isn't defeating external enemies or achieving specific outcomes. It's becoming the kind of person who can handle whatever life presents with wisdom, courage, and integrity. This victory is available to everyone regardless of circumstances, social status, or natural talents because it depends entirely on choices that remain within your control. Marcus Aurelius understood this perfectly when he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." The warrior's victory happens moment by moment, choice by choice, as you align your actions with your values rather than being driven by impulse, fear, or social pressure. This kind of strength can't be taken away by external circumstances because it exists independently of what happens to you. The beauty of this approach is that every challenge becomes an opportunity for victory. Difficult relationships teach you patience and communication skills. Professional setbacks develop resilience and creativity. Health problems cultivate appreciation and presence. Financial stress encourages resourcefulness and prioritization. The warrior doesn't seek out these challenges, but transforms whatever arises into material for character development. This perspective creates what we might call unconditional confidence, not the brittle confidence that depends on things going well, but the deep assurance that comes from knowing you can handle whatever happens with dignity and wisdom. You become unshakable not because nothing can hurt you, but because you've developed the internal resources to respond to hurt with grace. The modern world desperately needs this kind of warrior, people who have conquered themselves sufficiently to serve others effectively, who remain centered during crisis, and who demonstrate that strength and goodness can coexist. These battles you fight within yourself ultimately benefit everyone whose life you touch. If you're ready to begin your own warrior's journey, start today with a simple practice. Before reacting to the next challenging situation you encounter, pause and ask yourself what response would align with your highest values. Choose courage over comfort, wisdom over reactivity, and principle over convenience. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary warriors without ever fighting a single battle. Subscribe for more practical philosophy that transforms ancient wisdom into modern strength. The path of the philosophical warrior is open to anyone willing to choose character over comfort, one decision at a time.